We get a chair.
Yep, Selectman Powell will do that. She is here to talk about her Mercury dental amalgam bylaw and such changes. And so we have had the warrant articles. We've read the warrant articles. I think we understand the warrant articles. If you wanted to give us sort of a 2-second background on it, and one of the things I'm very interested in is understanding why it's coming forth to the town of Sharon and not being taken up at a more of a state level, one. And two, in your comments, if you could describe to us a little bit about, have you brought it to the state level, and if you got any feedback from them? Because I at this point in time, I don't see how it fits into the sort of town meeting and the town's decision-making process. Okay,
very great questions. As you know, I'm kind of a lifeguard by nature. It was one of my first jobs and one of my most favorite jobs. And I retired my lifeguard glasses and visor quite some time ago.
But your son took up the cause.
My son took up the cause. I've always had a special affinity for lifeguards, and there's something about reaching out and helping people who are in harm's way. I don't know why. Maybe a bad personality trait, but it's a part of me. Okay. So when I went through this experience and finally being diagnosed, great cost, time, personal expense, and tribulation of being having a toxicity reaction to my dental fillings, I thought, well, thank God, it's now going to be really easy to fix it. Go to my dental plan, get the word. There must be some people who are very sensitive to this. Dental plan won't pay more than the cost of putting amalgam back in because the standard of care under the FDA, which regulates dental amalgam as a medical device, still maintains, although they moved it to a class 2 device, that it's safe. I've looked into this at great length, cost, and time and personal expense, and something's not happening the way it should be in Washington about this device. I'll just quote from a federal judge who ruled on a suit against the FDA for its failure to classify amalgam in 2008. She said, "The probability of harm is enormous," and called the agency's 32-year foot-dragging government at its worst. The FDA settled the lawsuit, agreed to post a warning, and issue a final ruling. They posted a warning, then they rolled it back. They never issued a final ruling, so it's still the standard of care. There have been other states and cities and towns that have gone the route of informed consent because the FDA has, as you know, preemption, so states cannot restrict it, cannot ban it. It was tried in Connecticut. There was quite a court case there which was ruled, unconstitutional. So because those other avenues have not yet worked, the only thing we can do is raise awareness and educate people and work at the state and local level. I can assure you I am working at the state level. I'm working with both Senator Joyce, who's taken a deep interest, and Rep. Kafka, who's taken a deep interest. We had a joint meeting with Chairman Sanchez of the Public Health Committee just last week. As, at least in my experience, the way you make change when you're going against rather strong forces is you unite and educate and bring people together. And you need to do that at all levels. So I'm working with people nationally. I've been to national conferences. We're part of a network. There's different strategies going on. Because of the way the federal government and FDA has been dragging its feet in the face of scientific evidence, everyone is working simultaneously at the state, federal, and local levels because that's how you create maximum awareness and build a movement for change. It's pretty clear that for people of a certain gene type, this is a much bigger risk than for others. I've called it, a hidden river of toxins and a hidden river of people. The analogy I hit on today is it's kind of a silent storm. So that if you're sensitive, to mercury, if you don't clear it well because of your gene type, it builds up slowly within you, and you don't have the windows and doors that, the tide rushes up, and if it can't flow out through those windows and doors, it's stuck in you and you slowly get poisoned. So it's that serious. It's that I have personally decided that I will do whatever it takes to raise awareness and to work on this as a serious public policy issue at the federal, state, and local level simultaneously. That's how I would answer that question.
Have you spoken to the Board of Health yet? Have they come to an opinion on it?
I'm due back. I think I was going to possibly meet with them yesterday, but that got rescheduled. So I am due back. I had met with them in July, before I had, come to the strategy of filing these town warrant articles. Although, I was looking at a number of options then. I have met with the Finance Committee that were interested and asked some great questions.
And have you solicited assistance from any of the dentists in the community?
I've spoken with a number of dentists, not all within Sharon. I'm getting advice and support from a dentist who used to live in Sharon, doesn't live here anymore, consulting with other dentists in other communities. I reached out to one that was recommended. I haven't heard back. I know that Jay Schwab is familiar with it because he sits on the Board of Health. I am assuming that they will, once it gets out more broadly through the media, I'm glad to see the paper here, that people will get more engaged. But I tell you, this is a public health issue. It's not something that should be decided just by doctors, just by dentists, because they are taught in dental school that it's not a problem. The ADA was founded 159 years ago as a pro-amalgam trade association with patents. So it's just a tough issue. Nobody originally was, people didn't know its risk. They didn't know it vaporized. They didn't know that some people were more sensitive. But now that's established fact. And I think it's time to work simultaneously at all levels to try to make sure that as many people in Sharon who might be harmed by it are not harmed by it in the shortest possible time.
Questions?
Well, yeah, I'm a little concerned about the petition article coming in at a special town meeting, and you keep saying that you want to make people well aware of it. Wouldn't it be better for you, and I'm only asking, that you do your outreach to the people and then come back in May to do this, where you might have a better audience? In May we usually have a much larger town meeting than what we have in the fall here. So I'm just asking.
Well, I guess there were a couple things. One, I like to act sooner rather than later if it's a significant health risk, which I think it is. Two, my understanding is that you were trying to keep the spring town meeting focused on town budget and finances. This is more of a public policy question, so I thought perhaps it would be more appropriate. And frankly, as I've gone around and gotten signatures, there's been overwhelming interest and support. Most people thought we banned it quite some time ago. It's sad, but somebody in the center of town said, yes, I want to sign it. They just put this in my child. I had no idea they were doing it. I wasn't told. I asked about the other alternatives after it was already done and was told, like, oh, I don't do that. So we are not getting informed consent. There's no standards for informed consent. I'm working, I've reviewed the state dental code. I'm working on that as well. There's a lot of different issues to work on in this. But I don't see why there's a benefit of waiting, since I believe there'll be a pretty good turnout for this. And I was trying to respect the town's, intention of trying to keep the policy issues here in the fall and the budget issues in the spring.
But do you think you're going to be able to get the word out to these organizations and people that you should be doing the outreach to in time for this?
I think so. I'm speaking with the Lions Club. I've reached out to Rotary. I'm glad to see, I've been speaking with some of the local media. I'm glad to see them here. Most people are focused until next Tuesday on the election, and now obviously on the storm, which we were spared from. But I call this sort of a silent storm, and I see no reason to wait. And it may not pass, but I still think we'll raise awareness.
Okay.
It may well pass. It may pass in part. But this is how this is what stimulates attention, discussion, learning, and action, is by bringing it up at state, local, and federal and community levels. So that's why I'm doing it.
Rich, any questions?
Is there four different petition articles, right?
Three.
Okay. So, and some of them ask the town to do certain things, provide certain types of coverage in our dental plans for employees. Do you have a sense of what?
Rich, you should
Offer.
We don't offer a dental plan. The town doesn't pay for any dental plan, so you should know that.
Okay, so they don't. So is it available?
Does the school? Because I was told the
They can.
school.
Is it a supplemental benefit?
Perhaps it's a supplemental that you can purchase. And I know there's at least
Well, I'm gonna ask.
there's
I'm gonna ask
something.
Ben.
There's
You pay 100% for it.
There's a 100% employee paid option for dental.
Right. Coverage.
And so what I'm asking for is they be offered 200% options. One for what they have now, which is the type of plan which basically will only pay for alternatives to amalgam in the front 6 teeth, where they do it for cosmetic reasons. But Delta, which has refused, despite appeals, to pay for the work I need, and said that they'd be happy to provide a cost-neutral dental plan if employers asked for it. So I've gotten at least half dozen other employers to ask, and I thought, why not the town? Because not only might it benefit town employees, but everyone can then think in their mind, what about my employer? Should I be asking?
So do you know?
for cost-neutral?
So they are offering that type of plan?
EMC Corporation has a plan that they'll pay a certain percentage of whatever you elect to do in whatever tooth, and Delta, off the record, said they'd be happy.
They would offer. You might have to pay extra for it.
Exactly. I mean, they don't mind selling a more expensive plan.
So that's one of the articles.
Right. The
And
second one is informed consent, and this is, again, 4 states and a handful of other cities have informed consent provisions. Most of them were done before this 2009 guidance document that was a result of a court settlement that specified what the warnings are on amalgam that dentists get. And so all I'm asking is those same warnings be given to the patient, and then there be informed consent.
Are all of those warnings relevant to the patient as far as the use of the amalgams, or are some of them more relevant to the dentist because they're handling the amalgams?
Okay, there's 5. Warning, contains mercury. May be harmful if vapors are inhaled. Do not use in persons with a known mercury allergy. Do not place the device in direct contact with other types of metals, and use with adequate ventilation.
So those all sound like warnings to the dentist as opposed to any health risks to the patient.
Oh, no.
No?
I mean, if
How-
mercury's put in you,
Yeah.
you inhale some vapor when it's in. You also inhale a small amount of vapor is off gas in the presence of heat and abrasion.
But what about the use with other metals?
Well, what that means, and then no mercury allergy. Well, first of all, nobody really knows if they have an allergy.
Yeah, I had a question about
Okay.
that as well.
Other metals means it should not be next to a gold crown, next to a metal, braces. It should not be next to tin or nickel. Trust me, in my mouth, there's a mess under my crowns, which is not good, and so that's relevant to the patient.
It may be. I'm just wondering if it's worded in a way that it's useful to a patient, because the patient may not know what they have in their mouth. They may not know, I mean, I think you said this. This was the warning that's given to dentists. So I'm just wondering, you said other states adopted these warnings for patients?
Right. I believe
And
a
is
lot
this-
of the
is
other
this-
ones were before 2009, before they had this, so they spent about 3 years negotiating language, which I don't think would be a waste of time. I'd rather use these warnings. We all have a right to get our dental records, which will tell you what's in your teeth.
Well, that may be, but in my experience, the simpler the warning,
Right.
you're trying to create awareness. You're
Right.
trying to get patients to ask the questions, and sometimes simpler is better. I guess what I'm saying. And just kind of reading this, it seems pretty complicated or complex, and there's 10 different warnings there. I'm exaggerating maybe,
Five.
but yeah,
Right.
it's a long list of different things that may or may not just kind of brush over the patient's head. I'm wondering when other states require some sort of warning, is this the warning that they're requiring, or is it something a little bit simpler?
Well, it was done before this language was negotiated. As a
It
result
being
of
what? The other states?
Yes, the other states acted before.
Okay, what are
this
the other
was-
states? Do you have it? Can you send us samples of what the other states use for warnings?
Yeah, it's basically a pamphlet that is very uninformative, because until this came out, there was not this kind of language.
Is it a
So-
pamphlet specific to Mercury?
Yes, yes. So I can send you that, but I would not recommend it. I think, when I buy a prescription, I go home with an insert, which I may or may not read, but it tells me exactly what is in that drug, what it should not and be used with, and, what are the chances of various side effects, and what's a number to call if I have an adverse reaction. I may read it and decide not to even take it, or I might start taking it, have a reaction, and stop. All I'm asking is that we get similar information before something is basically
But
permanently
I guess what I'm
solved.
saying is, I think you're in the minority of the people that actually read those warnings, for good or for bad.
Right.
So my sense is that the simpler something is, that it'll raise the question, and people can do the follow-up from there. That's all I'm really saying with regard to the warnings. That's why maybe the pamphlet's not the way to do it. Maybe it's something simpler than a pamphlet that's in the office that people see as they walk in. But it's something that stands out, that's simple, that raises the awareness. And I'm just saying sometimes simpler is better.
No, I hear you on that. It's just that these are fairly simple. If it's in one place, then we don't have to refer people to other. I guess I'd be willing, if people want to propose at town meeting amendments which the majority of people would support, but it might have to be a stronger warning to encompass some of these things. It's sort of like this is.
Okay, and the third one is kind of Section 1 asks the Selectmen and the other boards to encourage residents to get involved in the One Town, One Challenge and Safe America campaigns.
Right.
Do you want to just kind of tell us what those are very briefly?
Sure. It's basically to encourage people to, on a voluntary basis, read about, maybe do some research. If they're in school, maybe do some projects. If the book club, maybe read a book. Around this issue, just to become better educated, because it is such a hidden health issue that more education about it, I think, could benefit people who want to learn more about it. And so it's sort of modeled on the one book, one town concept of, put out a challenge, and I would envision doing others in the future that may or may not have to do with public health, could be something else. I think there's a great benefit in having people in Sharon come together and look at something in a, coordinated, collaborative way.
Okay, and the other section of that is to call upon the President of the United States to direct the FDA to ban or restrict the use of these types of amalgams.
Basically, it is to follow the recommendations of the Scientific Advisory Panel, which both in 2006 and in 2010 said it should be restricted, not used in young kids, not used in pregnant women, not used in people with a known allergy to mercury. I can't understand why the FDA, which then committed to act by the end of 2011 on that, didn't act, and now the only announcement is that there's no timetable for an announcement. So, yes, we need to, ask for accountability here. There is a lack of accountability, which is, I'm not the first person or the only person who has called this to the attention. I'm working at the state level, working at the federal level, working at the local and community level, because it's time.
Thanks.